Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's ESG Awareness training by Cleanearth in collaboration with the Department of Factories Inspectorate. Thank you so much for joining in. We appreciate your time and presence. My name is Jifa Tometi, and I'll be your moderator for today. We want to move forward actually with the opening remarks.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good morning. As Jifa said, and thank you for joining today's session. The opening remarks is to be taken by Mr. Daniel Daku, Principal Inspector with the DFI, but I think he may be having some internet challenges now, so I'll take the pseudo opening remarks instead, and then when he joins in, I'm sure he'll still share a few words with us. So to begin, this training has become necessary because we at Cleanearth Africa believe that factories, industrial players, manufacturing companies need to first be empowered or be trained and have their capacity built to be able to be compliant to local laws, regulations, as well as global best practices. So we move beyond just seeking to administer services, but to also build people's capacity. Now, this is a belief that we share with the Department of Factories Inspectorate. And so with DFI, we decided to come up with this very training, which is free, to help us build your capacity, share insights with you on ESG and sustainability awareness, also to get the DFI to also let you understand what the DFI's mandates, what is expected of you, how you can be compliant. And that is basically the purpose for today's meeting. So to set the tone, I would say that we are grateful, number one, for all of you making the time to join. And number two, we are really anticipating that this would be as much as possible an open forum, a discussion where you get to share your thoughts, your ideas, your challenges. And then we at Cleanearth, as well as a team from DFI Ashanti Region, would come together to see how you can be helped. Thank you all once again for joining, and I will see you later on in the session.
Thank you so much now for that wonderful opening remarks. We move on to a video about the Cleanearth story, which is the Cleanearth at a glance. So the technical team, you can move on.
Hello and welcome to Cleanearth. 27 years ago, before the words climate change and carbon neutrality were on everyone's lips, a small group of visionaries in Africa saw a storm on the horizon. It wasn't just about rising temperatures or dwindling resources. It was about the very future of communities, ecosystems, and livelihoods. This is the story of Cleanearth, a story of science meeting purpose, of technology meeting tradition, and of a bold commitment to improve quality of life and safeguard the environment. Not just for today, but for generations to come. Back in the late 1990s, environmental solutions in Africa were rare, often imported, and almost always disconnected from local realities. Cleanearth was born with a radical idea. Solutions must be built in Africa, for Africa. From its earliest days, Cleanearth didn't just talk about sustainability, it rolled up its sleeves. Water systems were built where there were none. Carbon strategies were developed long before they became global business mandates. Communities were not just consulted, they were empowered. Cleanearth's work flows in three mighty currents. First, water management solutions. Imagine a village where clean water flows for the first time in decades, or an industrial plant that now treats its wastewater before it reaches the river. Second, environmental and sustainability solutions. From complex environmental and social impact assessments to resettlement and livelihood restoration, Cleanearth has mastered the art of balancing progress with preservation. Third, clean energy solutions. Picture solar arrays stretching across sunlit plains, factories cutting their carbon footprints in half, and companies achieving true energy independence. These are not abstract goals. They are tangible transformations happening across the continent. One of Cleanearth's proudest moments came from an ongoing beverage greenfield plant project. From the ground up, sustainability was woven into every brick, pipe, and process. Then there's the case of a commercial client needing a cutting-edge effluent treatment plant. Cleanearth delivered, turning potential pollutants into harmless water fit to return to the environment. And in the mining sector, where water is as precious as the minerals beneath the earth, Cleanearth's interventions at various sites ensured that every drop was treated as a resource, not a waste product. It is not just about technology, it is about trust. Cleanearth's clients know that when they partner with this team, they get a blend of rigorous science, deep local knowledge, and a fierce commitment to sustainability. Every project is guided by impact pillars aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This ensures the work not only solves today's problems, but prevents tomorrow's crises. Cleanearth's mission is clear: to improve quality of life and safeguard the environment through sustainable solutions. But behind that mission are people: engineers, scientists, and community leaders, all working in harmony to turn environmental challenges into opportunities for innovation and hope. This is more than a company profile. It is a movement. And as the climate challenges of the 21st century grow, so does Cleanearth's resolve. Because the future isn't something we wait for, it is something we build. This has been the Cleanearth story. Until next time, remember, sustainability isn't just about saving the planet, it is about saving ourselves.
Thank you so much, technical team, for that. We want to move straight into the presentation. So our first presentation is from Cleanearth or by Cleanearth, and it's on understanding ESG principles, compliance, and sustainable practices within Ghana's industrial sector. And this presentation is going to be by our ENS manager, Deborah Amo Ewa. Deborah, if you can hear me, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you once more, Jifa. Thank you, technical team. I would just take a moment while the technical team sets the slides up. But while we wait for them, I would like to, apologies. I'd like to reiterate that the goal for this discussion or today's training is to equip us with knowledge, insights, directions on how we can be more sustainable and compliant with sustainability and what we need to do. So we opened up this training for us to be able to share insights with you, to train you. We've had a couple of webinars earlier on in the year. And today we are here to walk you through our last training for the year, but one of many to come in the next coming year. I would take today's presentation, and like Jifa said, the goal is to let us just understand what the basics of ESG is, what we are expected of, what we are expected to do if we say we are doing ESG, as well as a simple playbook on how we can literally embed ESG or sustainability into our operations as soon as possible. Still waiting on technical team to get the slides up, or I would have to share my slides myself. Just give me a second. Right. If you can see my slides. As soon as you can see my slides, please let me know so that we can progress from there.
We can see your slides.
Right. Thank you once more. So like Jifa said, today's session is to look at understanding ESG principles, understanding compliance, as well as sustainable practices within Ghana's industrial sector. And my name is Deborah Amwa Iwa. I would be your facilitator for today's training with these 4 simple objectives. 1 is to demystify ESG in just 5 minutes or under. And to achieve this, we'll be using as much as possible shared language as well as zero ambiguity. No ambiguity at all. The second objective would be to strengthen your understanding of ESG concepts and frameworks, including how to align them. And then the third objective would be to demonstrate how ESG integration supports regulatory compliance as well as corporate performance. And then before we leave here today, I would be looking at equipping you with tools to identify and assess ESG-related risks and opportunities. Because for those of us who may already be engaging with me on LinkedIn, you will realize my current disruptive or thought disruptive post just simply said, look, at its core, ESG is risk management, is risk assessment first, and then risk management. So if you are doing anything at all and you cannot map it to any risk assessed and manage within your organization, then you barely can say you are doing ESG. And so before I go on, like I said, we are going to demystify the whole ESG concept in just 5 minutes or under. So we look at the fact that ESG is an acronym where E is talking about environment or environmental, S is social, and then G is governance. So when we take the E pillar in ESG, then if you marry that to the fact that I said ESG is risk assessment and risk management, then you realize that under E, you are trying to assess what environmental risks and potential disruptors to your business exist. And then you implement strategies tailored to your business to eliminate or mitigate or reduce the impact of those issues or potential disruptors to your business. So typically, given the fact that we are looking at industrial manufacturing sectors, even for service advisory companies like Cleanearth and others, the issue is that when you take environment, common risk points or common hazards in quotes, include your resource use, your emissions, climate resilience, or otherwise, and likes. Where for resource use, for instance, if you're an industry that relies on water, where most of your production focuses on using a lot of water to make your produce, then it is important to assess what your proven reserves are for water. It is important to assess or forecast what the potential availability or recharge rate is. And it is important to be able to implement strategies that can make sure that you do not run out of water. Otherwise, your business collapses. So that is a typical example of when we say ESG and then we look at environmental and want to zero in on resource use. You realize that it is not about going to do nice things for the environment or for people, basically, not necessarily that alone, but also assessing how they may or may not impact your business and implementing strategies. So if you find such a company digging about 30 boreholes on their premise or within their locality to ensure that they have enough water, or you find them instituting a domestic water treatment system on a water body in their locality, they are doing it to mitigate that potential risk of running out of their core resource or core natural resource, which is water. Now, the same concept applies for the social and for the governance pillars. You want to be able to assess all of these things. So under social, some of the issues that you may look at is stakeholder equity. If you have stakeholders, whether employees or investors. If any of them are disgruntled, it has the potential to disrupt your business. For instance, one employee resigning is not likely to disturb your business, but what if 10 of them or 20 resign at the same time? No matter how you get ready to recruit more, your business is still going to be affected at a point. So there would be a simple shock system, and then you will need to pump in resources, effort, energy to be able to return from that shock. All right. So if you are assessing something like this, like employee satisfaction even, then you are enhancing your company's resilience. And then you are implementing programs to get the employees to want to continue to be in the firm and give off their best. Now, that program, you are not just doing it just to make employees happy. That is one impact. And then the second impact is you are making sure that the flow of your process and operations do not get disrupted. So for today's session, I'm going a step further to let you understand why ESG is risk assessment and risk management, and we are taking the pillars after the other. The same rationale applies across community impact, health and safety, supply chain, and labor, right? And if you take governance to, again, the same. When you are doing ESG and you want to look at governance pillar, you want to assess the risks that are associated, for instance, with board oversight, with ethics or integrity, including anti-corruption policies, with transparency, what your decision-making structures are like. You want to assess all the potential risks that exist in these structures that has the potential to either halt your business, reduce your revenue or financial flows, or to simply get you dissatisfied in the eyes of the community or your clientele base, right? And so simply put, over a couple of months now, we've been doing active capacity building on our socials, especially on my LinkedIn, and we have come to be known for these three things. One, ESG is not corporate social responsibility, which is CSR. Two, ESG is not HSE. And then three, ESG is not environmental and social safeguards. Because from what we've discussed so far, then you will agree with me that when you say ESG, then you are literally embedding it in your strategy to guide operations, to analyze your risk. And basically, this is how the world measures resilient and future-proof businesses. This is why ESG has become so important. I've had several people ask me, what is the demand or what is driving the demand for ESG? This is the reason. If you are not implementing or assessing your risk along these value chains and implementing initiatives to cater to them, there is the likelihood that your business might fail. And so investors would not be interested in giving you any money to scale. We've spent a lot of time on these slides because it's important to understand the basics. So we'll now go through the rest as we can. And now, given all that I have spoken about, then you realize that if you ever said you are doing ESG, whether it's Joseph's company or Gerald's company or McDonald, whether it's Health Goldfields, then you want to make sure that anything that you are addressing in the name of ESG is material to your company. When we say material, meaning it's relevant to your company's existence and operations, not just doing things because they feel good or they look good or because you are hearing people say plant 1 million trees. But what risk are you trying to manage with that particular activity? So to ensure that you are aligned like this, we have something in ESG called materiality assessments. All right. And currently in Ghana, we are adopting the IFRS standards 1 and 2 come January 2027. In those standards, we expect double materiality, as well as the GRI and every other standard currently relevant. All right. We expect double materiality, and double materiality simply means that we need to assess what can impact our finances as a company, our operations, our revenue stream, our productivity. And we also need to assess how our work is impacting people and then the planet. Because take it from me, yesterday we were at the Environmental Protection Agency looking at environmental compliance for industrial players. And I remember the director for EPA Tema East Regional Office, shared a story of how an investor wanted to put up a fuel station somewhere in Kumasi. Okay, so he sent people to try and assess the community people's views and their acceptability or otherwise of the fact that allocated land, he wants to use it for a fuel station. Now, the community people immediately rejected the idea that they did not want a fuel station near them. So this investor went back rather than be transparent and then find out how to handle that risk to his potential investment. He went back to lie to the community people that, you know what, it wasn't him and that he is a new investor and he wants to put up a pharmacy. And the community folks welcomed the idea strongly. So he broke ground and started building his pharmacy, in quotes. It wasn't long before the community folks realized the structures he was putting up were too huge for a pharmacy. They looked like a fuel station, yet he kept claiming he didn't want a fuel station. And so when he thought he had invested enough, such that to him, people would no longer be able to kick against it, he reached out to the EPA to get permits. He also went to the National Petroleum Authority and Energy Commission and all of them to get his permits to put up his fuel station. And so EPA, in their mandate, have to consult the community to know that they have community buy-in before they proceed. Now, EPA gets to the ground, they held a stakeholder engagement session, and every single person in that meeting kicked against the idea. The director put it in his words, it was brutal. And so when he said it almost became a fight over there, so they had to cancel that meeting and literally decline giving this man the permit. This is basically what, if you do not have, you've not done a materiality assessment and you do not integrate ESG in your operations, this is basically what can happen to you. Now, this man had put up his structures all right for a fuel station. All he needed was the permits to start to bring in his oil and stuff and start his merchandise and start selling. But due to that kickback, till date, the facilities, the infrastructure that was put up is still there. They could not set up the fuel station. He's lost his investment. He's lost everything he put in there. And the people do not even want to patronize any pharmacy on that land anymore because they feel like the man deceived them. So you realize from this brief story, even yesterday at EPA by the director, you realize that these things are critical. They are as important as getting stuff or getting your raw material literally to be able to get your finished good and get them on the market. So when you conduct materiality assessment, you determine what matters to your business and then now conduct your assessment and implement interventions. Yeah, the outcome becomes a prioritized ESG risk opportunity, a measure that drives targets. Now, having gone through what ESG is and then shared some ideas on how or why it is important for us to do it right, let's briefly look through some of the frameworks that exist and then how to align them. So globally, there are many frameworks, but then I just zeroed in on this four because we are talking about Ghanaian sector. Largely, the African sector may be interested in these four over the others, unless you are having some exportations into other markets. So globally, we have the ISSB standards, currently IFRS standards 1 and 2, which is the S1 and S2. They are currently the core sustainability and climate disclosures that we are all being mandated to use according to our Ghanaian regulators. From 1st January 2027, it will be mandatory, meaning we have only 2026 to voluntarily report according to IFRS S1 and S2. So at Cleanearth, we have made ourselves available. We are ready to take people through the basics, the preparatory phase to get your first report out next year so that you can have it vetted by your regulators. And by the time it becomes mandatory, when the fines come, you're already ready to do that. There is also the GRI, which is more impact focused and try to look at your risks from stakeholder lens. And it's normally paired with the IFRS S2 and S1 and S2. Then the task force on climate-related financial disclosures zeroes in on climate risk governance. What is your strategy, your metrics, this particular disclosure is now largely embedded in IFRS S2. So if you report by IFRS S2, then you can say you are even reporting aligned with TCFD as well. And then we have the SaaS framework that looks at sector metrics, and you typically will still have to pair it with IFRS S1 and S2. So for useful decision-making KPIs. So at the end of the day, it is important for you to be IFRS S1 and S2 ready. If you are not, you can just simply reach out to Cleanearth and then we'll take you through a readiness assessment. Now, if you zero in down to Ghana and Africa, the regulatory anchors include these that I have mentioned, because we are also adopting the global frameworks, as well as these ones, the EPA Act, and then LI, now is LI 2504. The law has been passed, and so it includes EIA's permits, monitoring, and reporting obligations. Like I said yesterday, we were at EPA Tema to unpack all of that. And so you can reach out and we can have a discussion on how to get you better aligned. One key thing that is standing out in the new regulatory framework, besides our usual monitoring and reporting, is these two things. It is important to have a stakeholder engagement plan and to implement it. And number two, the fines for non-compliance has been moved to 500,000 United States dollars. Now that EPA has become an authority, they have every right under the law to take you on as they will. Again, that money is money you can use to expand your business. So you see why, if you are not aligned, an investor will be scared that their $500,000 they will give you for the business expansion to make profits from. You will end up using that money to go and pay for regulatory fines that you could have avoided should you have reached out to Cleanearth. Then we have the Bank of Ghana Sustainable Banking Principles, the Securities and Exchange, the SEC Sustainable Bonds Guidelines. Also, if you are running a company, your company itself would have their Act and Governance Code before the company's one, the national one. We also have the PPA that you want to make sure that you are aligned with, because the Act 914 that is amended has ESG clauses embedded in there. You really do not want any procurement breaches and issues with that by the end of your fiscal year. Then we have the National Climate Change Policy and the NDCs, and we have the regional lenders, the lending institutions. They also try to look at the IFC performance standards, the Equator principles, and the rest. These include donor institutions. So if your organization also relies on donor funding for some activities, you really want to pay attention. Now, that said, these are just examples on what we can do for each of the wing for ESG, right? So if you want to say you have a governance system that works, then at least you want to quickly go and look at your board, what the mandate is, the skill set of your board. Do any of them have ESG related links or do they not? If they don't have it, you need to train them, okay, so that they can understand it and be able to use it to influence the decisions they make at that high level. You also want to consider your management architecture, whether you have an ESG lead or not. If you do not have, who can you even turn into an ESG champion and get them to help you? Who are the data owners? You want to look at the suite of policies that you have. Most of us would have HSE policies or environmental management plans if you have an EPA permit. And let me just drop in this free information here that starting next year, the EPA permit, the environmental management plan that we submit to EPA is no longer going to be every 3 years, but every 2 years. It has been reduced to every 2 years. And if you don't do it, remember the 500,000 United States dollars. You also want to look at your internal controls, your Companies Act, Ghana Companies Act, and all of the other things that we spoke about. And if we want to zero in down on the sectors, assuming that there are most of you are from different sectors and you're on this training hoping to learn something, then if you're in the finance sector, at least you want to have a look at these frameworks, the TCFD, ISSB, the Equator principles. Those principles are used for finance gatekeeping, right? The green bond principles, you want to look at BOG's SBP. You want to look at the Green Finance Taxonomy released by the Ministry of Finance not long ago. You want to look at the SEC Ghana guidelines. And all of these matters because ESG disclosures are now shaping credit and investment flows. If you want to understand some more, we can pick up the conversation after this training. Then if you are in procurement, at least you want to have a fair idea what these frameworks are about and what they require of you. The ISO 2400, the GRI 308 and 414, IFC performance standards. You also want to look at the PPA Act, the amended 1914. Like I said, it has strong ESG clauses clearly listed out now. And that shows you where Ghana is also heading towards. Then you want to look at the EPA Ghana EIA regulations, now LI 2504. And all of these matters, again, because supply chains are the largest ESG risk source globally and in Ghana now. If you are in the sustainability field like me, or you are into ENS or HSE management, you want to look at works, including the GRI, SAS, CDP, ISO 1401. You also want to look at what EPA especially is requiring of us. So we would all need to look at the LI 2504. Perhaps early next year, Cleanearth will look at bringing another training on just the new LI specifically, so that we'll be able to disseminate or help you all on your compliance journey. You also want to look at Ghana's renewable energy or energy transition plan lasting till 2035, so that you align any initiatives you are doing in that regard to it, and you want to look at the climate change policy and NDC commitments. Again, let me let you know that the new EPA Act, the act that turned it into an authority, Chapter 5, all of Chapter 5 is only on climate change. You can look at the document, or we would have another session to break it down. And now, from all that we are saying, you realize that if you integrate ESG, then you are saying that you will be enhancing your regulatory alignment, you improve operational efficiency, save costs. If you are no longer paying money in fines, you can use that money to expand your business and even increase productivity. You strengthen your reputation, and then you have better risk management and business resilience. So having gone through all this and having set the tone, we can basically look at a simple playbook that we can adopt. And for us at Cleanearth, we have what we call the free 90-day ESG quick start. Anyone who wants it can indicate interest in the chat box, or find Jifa and send a message or an email, and she will get it over to you after the training. In that quick start checklist, you would find that what we have suggested you can do from the first day onto the 90th day. And they include baseline assessment, they include setting targets, they include how to have your first disclosure, whether it is a one-page ESG fact sheet or it is even a baseline sustainability report. You can get something like that in there. And if you do not understand any parts of the quick start, you reach out to us again, we'll gladly take you through it. The checklist itself is free. Taking you through it is also free. Then we have the 12-month roadmap, which is available at a small fee. If you reach out to us again, we'll let you have that one, as well as literally guide you and take you through. In the 12-month roadmap, you can expect what you can focus on, even if it's your baseline or your first year at sustainability alignment or ESG alignment and integration. You can look at what your governance architecture should look like, the policies. In quarter 2, we have several things, including supplier ESG onboarding. In quarter 3, we can focus on climate and ENS risk scenarios. And then by the 4th quarter of that year, come 2026, you will get your first public-facing sustainability report out there, which is aligned to both the ISSB standards, the GRIs, and then any other framework that is relevant to your operations. Because if your operations export to Europe, then you want to look at the EUDR. If it's an agricultural produce. If it is just export of other products, you want to look at ESRS. So there are so many of them. If it is about carbon trading, we have frameworks again that we can look at, right? So it's something that we would also make available upon request. And then if you would, from the insights from this engagement, you would like to look at trying to build something on your own, which you can share for us to give you an input. That one too would be free of charge. Just input or comment on the document to guide you on what to do. Some of the KPIs that top of our head or on the surface you can look at. You can look at carbon dioxide or if its equivalent intensity. You can look at energy use, renewable or not, water intensity, waste diversion. You can look at suppliers screened under social, wage equity, right? Training hours given to employees, grievance disclosure or stakeholder engagement plan. You can look at under governance, the percentage of board independence, anti-bribery training, timely disclosures. But then our top tip that we are giving to you is that you should always pair an absolute metric with an intensity and then align it with the target owner. So if, let's say, you have a metric that you are, for instance, going to reduce your carbon emissions because you have identified it as a potential risk to your business, then you can have a target for what metric ton or percentage reduction that you want to achieve by what deadline. And you assign it to, let's say, operations manager. You always need to assign it. Let someone own the target because that is how you'll be able to achieve them. Again, another support that we are offering to you is how your data architecture and assurance should look like. Like I said, someone needs to own the data and the process, whether it's operations, HR, finance, procurement. If you've identified that employee displeasure is critical to your operations because they can boycott operations or sabotage operations one way or the other, and you want to implement something to ensure that you curtail that, of course, you map it to HR to be able to get those things done, right? Then some of the places that you can collect evidences includes invoices, utility bills, logs, right? All of these are evidence that you can use to gather your data and then use it, analyze it and use it to tell your story. Again, if you also want to conduct checks and balances, we call it quality control as you are going on. You can conduct spot audits, you can analyze the variance. If before you had, let's say, 10% renewable energy and now you want to move to 20, right? You can analyze and find out what is needed to move from there. And you can even call on third-party assurance or verificators like Cleanearth and others out there in case you are implementing everything yourself. You have these extra pair of eyes to come and assess whether you're on track or not. You can also deploy dashboards. And now we are saying that in all of these data architecture and getting stuff ready, never forget that you should map risks to opportunity. If you forget anything from this training, don't forget that ESG is risk assessment and risk management. So you map the risks, you map it to opportunity, that is managing it. And then when you integrate it into, let's say, your corporate risk register and investment committee papers, then you can say that you are integrating ESG into your operations. Now, what we have here for you is just giving you a few ideas on if you were looking for green finance. These are some of the things that the finance people would look out for. For lenders, they will look at your governance, your E&S risk management, they will look at climate resilience, and then they will look at your disclosures. Now, if you were going for green or sustainability-linked loans and bonds, they would want to understand what you are going to use the money for, your use of process. They would like to see your key performance indicators, and they would like to understand what your verification needs would be. And the advantage that embedding all of these in your operations and your reportings annually does is that they give you a credit advantage because creditors, lenders, investors sees that you have a lower risk premium when your controls and your data are credible. And if you also wish to be a vendor to especially multinational organizations or corporations, Then you want to embed ESG clauses in everything that you do, human rights, environment, anti-bribery. You also want to look at your supplier due diligence tiers, and you want to have scorecards and corrective action plans, because whatever you may have identified that you may not be fixing immediately, you can have a plan for how you intend to do it. And those also gives you an advantage. These things, when they are not in your tenders and your bids or in your company's profile, brochures, portfolios, typically disqualifies you, because they give the impression that you have the potential to be having severe breaches. And if you're a sustainability professional or an ENS manager or an HSE coordinator anywhere, these things, again, I'm reiterating that you cannot leave them out. The ISOs, the IFCPSs, the stakeholder engagement plan. Yesterday, again, it came up strongly at the EPA on parking. And so as we get closer to ending the training on ESG and sustainability, we just picked a few sectors that we can say that, look, these are hotspots or directly areas you can look at. This is based on credible research and assessment. So if you are in the FMCG or manufacturing sector, if not for anything at all, some of your hotspots include water use, wastewater, energy intensity, your packaging, waste, right? And then quick wins for you can include heat recovery, can include leak reduction, can include effluent treatment plant optimizations. And let me add that at Cleanearth, if you couldn't join early enough to see our video, we do ESG and sustainability, and we also do water and wastewater treatments, including literally building your effluent treatment plants. We also do clean energy integration. And so when you have these quick wins, all right, like quick interventions that you can have at least some credible wins to be able to support your disclosures, then you can look at your supply chain as well, where you look at extended producer responsibility, how much of their content is recycled. So for all of these, you put it in your tender clauses, right? And then the people who will bid or who will be your vendors would have no choice than to comply. So what we then get is a chain of people or corporations being more sustainable as we go on. And then if you are in mining and the extractive sectors, including oil and gas, then some hotspots that typically are criticized or scrutinized includes tailings, water stewardship, land and communities that you are operating in, security, and then HRDD. And typical controls includes the IFC Performance Standard 6, biodiversity, resettlement action plans, incident readiness, amongst others, right? Some easy opportunities that you can look at depending on the risk to your operations includes renewables, efficient fleet, local content programs. And then if you are in real estate and infrastructure, again, some of your hotspots include building energy, water fixtures, construction waste, HNS, that is health and safety. Your controls will include green building codes, commissioning, operations and maintenance, and your opportunities include whether you want to have a hybrid system, smart metering. Now, smart metering is something that Cleanearth typically assists real estate developers with using our IoT sensors, all right, as well as rainwater harvesting. And if you want to look at one core thing that came up again yesterday at EPA, so we quickly had to put this in the slide, has to do with the fact that having ETPs, if it is relevant to your operations, it's important. Now, if you are designing those systems, you can still put in a few of these things to be able to ensure that you are enhancing your compliance, not just putting up an ETP or an STP. So in your design input, you can literally try to control flows, the loads, the variability, and then make sure you are complying to discharge standards. So you design it such that it can meet the standards. In this case, if you don't know what standards you can deal with, at least the GS 2019-1212 is there for you to look at. EPA also has their own standards, very similar to the GSA's own. So it's typically almost the same. Then technology options that can help you do some of these things include FISCEMs, BIOS, MBRs, and then as well as what the O&M requirements would be for each system. And the performance measures would include uptime, energy per meter cube, sludge handling, and then QA/QC assurances for where you do the labs, whether in situ or ex situ. Now, in all of this, for some of you, when you go back in trying to apply these, especially the free 90-day quick start checklist that we'll share with you upon request, you may realize that you need to conduct or determine your carbon footprint to be able to implement anything in that regard. And for that, we are giving this brief information that should help you. We are saying that the singular most important protocol to use when you are trying to do carbon accounting, management, or develop carbon projects for donor funding and the rest to implement. At least look at the greenhouse gas protocol, and it has scopes 1 to 3. Scope 1 has to do with source emissions or what you own as a company. Scope 2 is purchased emissions. And then scope 3 has to do with your value chain. All of those are not difficult at all to estimate. If you are having challenges, you can reach out. Again, next year, we have a suite of trainings coming up. We would have one on carbon accounting as well. But then as you are designing your mitigation or carbon emission reduction strategies, you would need to take note of this hierarchy, which is the abatement hierarchy. It is that try to first think of avoiding it. And where you cannot avoid that emission at all, then you look at ways to reduce it. Where you cannot reduce it at all, we can look at ways to alternate or switch or find alternative options. If all of this is not possible, before we go to offsetting it, where offsetting it includes either you are having, whether it's reforestation programs elsewhere or something else to get you some carbon credits that you use to cancel your emission. That should be the last thing that you should think about, right? And for those who would want to look at project opportunities, carbon projects for funding from donor and multilateral agencies, try to look at energy efficiency projects, solar reduction, solar integration projects, cook stoves, or the RED Plus projects. These projects are currently ones that are hot cake and still have a lot of funding mechanisms available for them. So you can develop projects along these value chains. Again, we can support you with carbon project development if you need to. But one thing is critical. In the project development, you need to conduct due diligence. Due diligence includes finding out what fund you want to get the funding from for the project. It also includes aligning with all requirements, and then it includes accounting for whatever disruptions or challenges, environmental, social governance challenges are likely to arise as a result of the project from commissioning to finish. You want to look at all of that and then address it in the project development to increase your chances of receiving funding. Now, having said all of that, we are bringing this session to a close. I want to leave us with 5 implementation steps that we can use if you leave this particular training and want to integrate ESG into your operations. 1, at least you need to conduct some diagnosis for if this is your first time. If you have it already, then you already have your baseline. So diagnosing will include baseline and then your materiality assessments. Then 2, you want to design your integration strategy, which will include targets, policies. 3, you want to deliver or implement what the targets that you designed are. It may include projects and supplier actions. And then the 4th thing you want to do is to disclose your sustainability initiatives through your annual sustainability report or what is generally called ESG report or disclosure. And when you are done with all of this, it is critical that as you go on, you have some form of assurance to be able to help you improve upon your interventions and your disclosure methods. The assurances can take the form of audits as well as incentives. While I believe at this point we have been able to understand what the business value is, let us still leave you with these 4 things. If not for anything at all, you can screenshot this slide and use it to remind yourself if also you need to make a case to management for why you should be concerned about sustainability and ESG. 1, it helps you to get better access to financing. 2, it helps you to reduce risks, climate, legal, supply chain. 3, helps you to improve your reputation and stakeholder trust, which includes making sure that there are no external or internal disruptors or sabotages to your business and its operations. And when you have done all of these, we say that you get a competitive advantage in your local and your global markets. And so I'm saying that after this session, at least I expect, sorry, and I anticipate that all of us will start assessing our ESG risks, our impacts, and our opportunities, and we will be committed to building internal ESG awareness and capacity. The time that you have spent on this call, the huge numbers of all of you here already demonstrates your commitment. So I would say we should keep it up and just know that we are always a call, text, or email away from you should you need any form of support from us here at Cleanearth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Deborah, for this very insightful presentation. I like the fact that you talked about the importance of integrating ESG in our operations. Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to also state that we'll be having a question and answers session, so don't worry about that. If you have any questions, we have a few minutes for that. You can also type it in the chat box and I would read it out. We want to dive straight into the presentation by DFI, which is the role DFI plays in promoting responsible and sustainable industrial growth through regulator-industry collaboration. And this presentation is going to be done by Daniel Darko, who is the Principal Inspector at DFI. Thank you. Daniel, if you can hear me, the floor is yours.
Hello, Jifa, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning once again, and good morning to everyone. Can you hear me?
Daniel, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, all right. Good morning to everyone. I'm Daniel Amoadakon, a Principal Factory Inspector with the Department of Factories Inspectorate, Ashanti Regional Office. I think this collaboration is in the best of interest for all stakeholders, let's say industry players, people that are into primarily any working premise at all that would want to certify their place or their premises under ESG compliance. For DFI, I believe some of us on this meeting might have heard of us, or some of us it might also be the very first time we are hearing about DFI. But simply put, we are solely responsible for occupational health and safety within the country. That is, our mandate stems from the Factories, Offices and Shops Act 328 1970. And that is where we get our role and our mandate from. But over the years, there have been lapses here and there, and we are trying to come up a bit, let people or occupiers be aware of us. And I think one of our main hurdles has always been the definition of a factory or what a factory is, because primarily with the Act, a factory essentially means anywhere that, Jiva, can I get the next slide, please? Hello, Jifa.
Daniel, you can go ahead. It's on. The next slide is on.
Okay, I'm not seeing. Okay, all right, sure, good. So, essentially, our act is a public document, right? And per the definitions that it spells out, literally every premise or any place that people work should duly be registered with us. Now, a lot of people have issues with the name factory because for most of the premises that we would visit, they claim, oh, we are not doing any manufacturing, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. But with the act that is under section 83 of this act, is a public document. So I believe in this meeting, you can equally just Google it and then you just get the document as it is. So under section 83, the factory essentially means that sometimes all I just tell people is that once you are working in any place where you are paid, right, your premises falls under or per the Ghanaian laws is defined as a factory. It might be your home once you are being paid for the service. I can't remember we had, personally, I had an issue with, I won't say an issue, it was a small back and forth with a lawyer. Because then her concern was that, well, if that is the definition of a factory, if I have a maid at home and I'm paying for her services, that means it's a factory. And I'm saying, well, those that created the law at that time felt the need for that. So there are still some lapses here and there where I feel like maybe the act can be fine-tuned, but as it stands now, these are the regulations that bind us as a country. So that is the definition of a factory per the act. And then also an office. Any room of a building of which substantial use is for clerical work, including bookkeeping, filing, typing, duplicating, machine calculating. Now, simply put, even if you are using a calculator in that space, per the Ghanaian laws or under the Factories, Office and Shops Act, it qualifies to be an office. So then you are duly supposed to register with us. Then we have a shop. For a shop, it's still a shop. There's nothing else you can do. It's still, once you are doing any form of trade over there, it qualifies as that. And then our mandate applies to you as well. Jiva, kindly give me the next one.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay. It's not changed. All right. So now I would primarily hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay, so I'll divide most of my readings into parts as the act itself stipulates. The reason being, for everything that we do, we are just bound by the rules and regulations of the country. We cannot do anything other than that. Now, after or having defined what a factory is, or what a shop is, or what an office is, essentially what the act wants to achieve is that anybody working within that space, right, is well protected or is catered for or has adequate welfare facilities for that person. Now, the reason we are having this joint training or talk shop with Cleanearth is I've had instances where, as a factory inspector, we've had people come to do background checks on companies that are registered with us. Essentially, maybe there's an investor coming on board and they've written to lawyers and then they have to now do background checks and all those things. We've had companies that haven't been registered with us. They come, we have records of them, but then they've not registered. There are others that have registered, but then they have other issues that are in non-conformity with what the rules and regulations or what the law says. Now, in those instances, we realize that, well, we do not know how the feedback is going to affect the company in question. And mind you, these things are done on the blind side of the of the company or the occupier. Because for an investor, well, we do not even know the investor, but then they just write to us through their lawyers, and then we have to provide this information. So we are using this medium as well to let people know some of the things that you have to do when it comes to occupational health and then safety.
Daniel, if you are talking, we cannot hear you. Hello, Daniel, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You can go ahead. We missed you for like 30 seconds, so if you can just go back a little.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So essentially, what I was just trying to say was that for most companies, I think for most companies, there are investors that do background checks, right? And then us being solely responsible for occupational health and safety within the country at large, some of these checks come to us. Now, when they do come to us, they check our reports and then ask even if these companies are duly registered with us. Now, once you are duly registered with us, fine, you've at least completed a part of your whole obligation, because then you are certified that, okay, DFI comes to your premises to come and then check one or two things when it comes to occupational health and then safety. Then they go further to find out if there are other infractions, despite the fact that you have duly registered. You get it? So now I'll just want us to go through our act briefly, and then if after the presentation there are any other questions, it's a lot, but I'll try to summarize almost everything that we do. Yeah. So part one is just about the registration of the factories. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we've defined what a factory is with regards to the Act. So now I'm assuming or believing that everybody on this space understands what a factory is. Per the law, you are supposed to register with us before you even start your operations. But we understand a lot of people are not aware that they are supposed to come here, they are supposed to do this, they are supposed to do that. We get it. Now, even after you've done that, right? In the course of your operations, once we come to you, we will then have to explain to you why you had to do that. So it makes provision for new factories that are coming up, and then also existing factories that have been, well, they didn't know, for lack of a better word. Let me just do it that way. But essentially, the reason why you would have to come first to us before you even start, once we are responsible for occupational health and safety, we are going to factor all the safety measures for the type of business or operation that you are going to do or embark on at a particular premise that you find yourself. Let's say it's a warehouse. Let's say you are going into production of agrochemicals. You'll be using forklifts here and there. You have machines, you have chemicals, right? Now, as DFI, the reason why you have to come to us first is that we'll have to find out, okay, what kind of operation are you going to do? How many workers do you intend employing? What are the welfare facilities you intend providing for the workers? You might be shocked to know that a lot of companies, well, start up their factories and then do not think so much about the welfare of the workers. They start up, they just bring the machines, and then it just starts, and then everything is just running. At that time, when we come in, most of the instructions or most of the directives that we are going to give to you might seem difficult, because then you've completed literally everything that you've done. Let's say, oh, you've not created an avenue for emergency exit and all those stuff, but then you've put all your machines around, and it's even difficult for your workers to find an escape route. At that point, at best, what we'll do is advise you. And you see, for us, once we put it in writing, it stays there. So a change has been done, or you've notified us that, oh, okay, I've done this and that, come in then check. Because we've had instances where people or factory hands, let me put them this way, or laborers, or I think in common parlance, they call them, I've forgotten the name. Let me just use factory hands, workers within the factory. Now, there are some that more or less, some people have literally no regard for them. I believe we all understand what we are talking about. Now, issues or accidents sometimes happen to these guys, and before you know, they have lawyers involved. At that point in time, for us as DFI, you see, a lot of people might say, oh, they don't know that there's this, but the lawyers do know, right? The lawyers do know. We'll be summoned in court, and then our report is what we'll use against you. Once we've reported against these things, and bear in mind, everything that we have to do, we are doing it according to the law. We cannot just import anything. So if I'm to say that, oh, break part of this your building, there's a reason why I'm saying that. And that even falls under alteration and building of new factories. So if I'm giving that as a recommendation, then I know why I'm saying that. You get it? So then after that, we go to the registers and then prescribed abstract. Those that are registered under us, right? We have a register. For lack of time and everything, I'll just speak to it. It's more or less like, let's say when we're in primary school, the general registers are primary teachers used. Everybody has their record and everything over there. But this time around, it's not even about the workers. It's about the activity that as a company, you decide to embark on. So with that register, right now it's in fine print. You can just give it to you. You can just extrapolate. I think in Excel, you can just do your own thing, but following the same medium. Now, the reason why we keep making reference, or I keep making reference to the act, is that for now, that is the only legal backing that we have when it comes to occupational health and safety till further amendments are made. So we cannot, even though we know better now, or maybe we feel there are advanced methods here and there, the law hasn't created an avenue for those things. All that it knows per the act is our general register. So it's a legal binding document. For any other person that hasn't received it, if you are on this space and then you know me in person or you know any DFI office, kindly reach out to them and then request for that general register. Because should anything happen, it is meant for you to actually keep records of all these activities within your premises. Now, for record keeping, we all understand why there's a need for that. It is to help our own selves, right? Should anything untoward happen, then you know. And even when it comes to hazards and then accidents identification, it helps a lot. Because once you are reporting or you are recording incidents, then you know how to make changes within your factory or working premises. Let me give you an example. As DFI or as a factory inspector, I will not always be available at your premises. Periodically, maybe in a space of a year, I might be there twice or 3 times. That notwithstanding, when I come, whatever the situation is what I'm going to respond to. If I come and then I meet, let's say, a very slippery floor, you have water almost all over the place, and I see that it poses the hazard of slips or falls over there, I'm literally going to ask you about it. Now, if you report to me and tell me that, oh, there's an issue here with this leakage, I ask you, how long has it been? And aside that, you are not the only person. I'm equally going to ask the workers. You see, if you let me understand that it's been going on for long, then I'll have to now start questioning you. Because if you have kept a record of it, you yourself would know that, oh, okay, this thing has been going on for long, and then we have to fix it. I believe for most of the safety practitioners on this platform, a lot of us know how these things go about or how we have to handle them. But when you come to the act, it also creates that provision for it in record keeping and then registers as well. So we have prescribed acts and then regulations and then notices. I'm going to re-echo this one again. For our act is a public document. As I speak to you now, you can just look it up. Factories, Offices and Shops Act 1970 Act 328. And then it stipulates everything that we are supposed to even enforce right? Everything that you as an occupier, you're equally supposed to check. Now, I'm going to part 4, notification of accidents. I know we'll catch a lot of heat as DFI over here, but that notwithstanding, we are here. Okay, for every facility, for every working premise, and then based on the earlier definition I gave, you could tell that literally our scope covers everywhere. Because once you are employed for gain, and then you are being paid per the act, that side qualifies to be a factory. Now, part 4, section 10 of our act, notification of accident. Every occupier, it's incumbent on you to inform the Department of Factories Inspectorate once you have an accident or even an incident, those that are even registered with us, to inform us about it. The reason is simple. We do not expect workers to go to work to get maimed or to get injury. We have to conduct the investigations and then prevent it from further happening. The understanding is that before you even start, we had already engaged you to let you know that, oh, these are the do's and don'ts, don't do this, pay your operations, this, like change this, change that. So it's assumed that you already know. Now, for those that ideally might not have registered with us, it will be a small challenge. Not even a small, it's going to be a challenge, because then at that point in time, some of them carry about activities that they do not even factor in the hazards that are associated with the act that they are doing. You go to factories where people are working, and it's funny, sometimes immediately our mind goes to PPEs, but PPEs are more often the last resort. Right? If you check the kind of operations that they are doing, perhaps maybe they could find a different place to have that, carry out that particular activity, or they could find a different way to make that thing operate before we even come down to the PPEs. Because for the PPEs, primarily, it's just your last resort of protection. But assuming people had equally come to us before they started operations, we would have asked them, no, this machine that you're operating here, and where your workers even move, it isn't right. You have to change it. But some do not even have any idea at all. At the end of the day, business owner setup is factory, foreman is there, supervisor is there. Everybody's just looking out for output. So if you have a warehouse where the forklift is supposed to, let's say even maybe 5 km, that's a speed limit that is even supposed to move. You can find warehouses where people are literally speeding with the forklift in the name of, oh, we want to meet our target. We want to move these boxes fast. And before you realize, an accident has happened. Now, dangerous occurrences. It might not necessarily be an accident, but anything that is dangerous. Now, it might be relative, but considering the nature of work that we might all be doing, let's say I work in a warehouse. I might be citing warehouses a lot because I think that is quite familiar around, aside the specific companies or factories that operate. Let's say I work in a warehouse, and I realize that anytime we stack stuff, they easily tumble. I don't have to wait for my company to report it before action is taken. Even if I, as a worker, and I want to say this to everybody on the space, do well to report these things to the factories inspectorate. We are not going to come in there and then point you out. No. Like I'm saying, the first thing is that even the company is supposed to register with us. And when we come, we are regulators in that space when it comes to occupational health and safety. Nobody is going to pinpoint you out for anything. It's rather be unfortunate if we come in there and then you rather tell us that, oh, I had wanted to come and then inform you. By that time, whatever thing that has to happen had already happened. You get it? So before you realize some of these things are going wrong, kindly inform us. We do our investigations. Then we advise based on that. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, why don't you just sanction? Why don't you just do this? The law creates an avenue for that. But you see, as regulators, we work with both the company owners and then we still intercede, or we still stand in for the workers. We are not here to just antagonize the company owners. Oh, do this, then small, we are closing you down. We are doing this, we are doing no. It is not even the first resort. We are not even there to just shut, because you see, sometimes we are quick to mention these things, forgetting that in a company, maybe a company might be employing 400 or 500 people, and an accident has happened, right? Which involved 4 or 5 people. I'm not saying it is fair, or we are like it's right for us to equate it that way. But if we look at what has happened to the 4 or 5 people, and then we say that fine, depending on the severity of it, we say, okay, we are closing down the company. Now, what happens to the rest of the hundreds? Where are they going next? So, and we are in Ghana. We understand the unemployment situation and everything. So sometimes we prefer that for anyone that wants to even find our office, like you just Google it. You can get the regional offices, be it in Ashanti region, Greater Accra region. I think for now, we are literally in all the regions. Just notify us about it. If you've notified us and then we've not come there, that is also another issue. But for now, do your best to just notify us. Once we come in, we see the operations, then just check up on it. Because you see, as regulators, we are not there primarily to be policemen and then just catching people. Sometimes what workers might see as, oh, they are not doing anything, they come and then they just come and talk. Hello, please, can I be heard? Jifa, can you hear me?
Yes, Daniel, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I got a notification that my mic had been disabled. That is why. All right. So essentially, once you come to us and then inform us, we'll do our best to get to the bottom of the issue. Now, the other challenge has to do with where people assume that, well, we've come around, nothing has happened. And then now, for most of these things, it is not just cast in stone. Okay, for the health and safety practitioners on the platform, I believe as a safety officer or as a safety manager, most of us all report directly to managers or CEOs or whoever in a higher authority in our respective companies. We can all attest to it that some recommendations take time and then some are shelved, right? So one thing personally in my years of practice, more years of practice, I've noticed in Ghana is that what we do best is to manage the safety situations. Because for most of the occupiers or for most of the companies, it becomes very difficult if you are going straight at, no, stop this, bring this new machine, get this. No, in fact, a lot of them cannot even afford. So what people might not know is that discussions go on. I can give a clear example where I've literally dealt with companies in providing safety boots for workers. Now, we've gone there a couple of times and there's a high turnover. Today you go meet different set, the next time you go, almost the whole set is gone. And then the problem still persists. Earlier, we're just forcing them to get the PPEs. Eventually, the company decided to do that. They got them the PPEs and everything, especially the safety boots, whatever like they needed for the work. They made us aware that, okay, we bought them. You guys said we should buy them. Fine, we bought them. Now, on our next visit, literally everybody that the PPE was given to, over 50% were not there with the company. And that was even within the same year. Now, these are personal protective equipment. So they've taken them along with themselves. What then do we do? Because if we keep recommending it this way, you as a business owner, you might probably even have challenges or problems with us as regulators as we keep recommending. Hey, my time is almost up. Wow, sorry. Okay, so wow. Okay, so I think I have just about 5 minutes to just wrap up. Okay, so let me just go straight to 5. When we come visit premises, we check for cleanliness, right? We check for overcrowding. We check for ventilation. We check for washing facilities lighting, drainage of floors, sanitary conveniences, drinking water, accommodation for clothing. That is where most of us have challenges, and even drinking water, accommodation for clothing, simply changing rooms, sitting facilities, removal of dust or fumes, taking of meals, protective clothing and appliances, noise and vibrations, prohibition of lifting excessive weights, first aid, and then power to require medical supervision, health and then welfare regulations. Now, I'd like to just speak briefly on this one. Now, when it comes to the previous slide, right? Your first aid and then the power to require request for a medical supervision, we find a lot of problems, especially first aid. One simple advice, please, anytime you try to get your first aid, do not put any form of oral medication there. If you are going to have an oral medication, then there should be a medical practitioner on site. Now, aside that, any other thing that we have listed here, it is stated in the law. So I can come to your premises, right? And then you might probably not have a decent toilet facility, and it will go against you. And that will be in our report. Please, the next slide. Now, when it comes to safety, I think the prevention of fire alarm, safety provision in cases of fire. Now, hitherto, I think 1997, that side has been repealed and then it's now with the fire service. But that still doesn't take away anything from us. Because once I come in there, at best, I know that their fire service is supposed to be responsible for these things. So once I come in and then I say that, okay, no, your fire extinguishers have expired, your fire alarm, do you even have them? Now, for a lot of these recent fire outbreaks that we've had, some I might not be able to speak to publicly, but there are undertones. And for everything that we are seeing or for everything that we are witnessing, a lot of them are just not compliance with regulations, be it from us, be it from fire service. And it's the whole nation at large, because I can tell you for a fact, most of these premises do have certificates. And once you have a certificate, essentially means that your premises is constantly being visited by these regulators. I know for one, because I visit premises and then I equally do advise. But at the end of the day, it's up to the company to abide by it. Now, when it comes to the part where maybe people are not complying, our laws give us the mandate for us to prosecute. But you see, we do not just outrightly start to just come in and accost you, like I mentioned. We understand that it's occupational health and safety. It's the welfare of the workers. And then we need you to understand. When I say you, I mean as a company or as whoever or as a director, for you to understand the reason why you need to provide these measures in your facility. You get it? So I know a lot of people have reservations when we come to the operations of DFI. They're like, yo, you guys are not chasing this, but you guys are not under it, or we are actually going there, speaking to them. But for most of these things, sometimes at managerial roles, like they have to just take certain decisions here and then there, which they haven't. I think at this point, my time is almost up. If you have any questions, I think we are just going to the question and mic answer phase. If you have any other question for everything that has been lifted, that has been stated here, DFI has regulations, or we are supposed to have compliance when it comes to these things. All right, Jifa, I would end here so that the questions can begin.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. That was a very interesting presentation. And I think right now we know the most important thing is that we know the role that DFI plays and how they can help and protect us. I want to just quickly move into the question and answer session. So if you have any question, just raise up your hand and then you can unmute yourself and talk. If you're shy of talking to, you can put the question in the chat session and then we would read it out, or I would read it out to you. So if anyone has any question, yes, please. Ofori, right? Kindly go ahead, unmute yourself and share your question.
Jifa, I think we need to allow participants to be able to unmute themselves now. Amishadai may be attempting to.
Okay. I think you can go ahead, please. Ofori, you can go ahead and mute yourself. Sorry about the delay.
Sure, no problem. Thank you very much. Daniel, that was a very good presentation from a factories inspectorate. I think I have one concern for Daniel, and then maybe later I'll come to Deborah. With factories inspectorate, I think it's one thing I've always been hating on whenever we meet for meetings. I remember when I was in Accra, and then, in fact, I've worked with several companies for years now, and then my concern, it has been a major concern, that it's a department, and I think if they can shift, like what.
Mr. Ofori, your line is breaking a bit.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly go ahead.
All right. So I was saying that, in fact, it's a good presentation from Daniel. He has given us a view of, what they are doing and other things. But my concern, and it's a major concern, I've always been hating on it whenever we meet for meetings. I've been working with industries for years now. And then my concern is that it is a department of Factories Inspectorate is a department. And I think if they can work on it and then they becoming an authority will really help with their enforcement. Because I feel as a department, they are limited in a way. But if with time they become an authority, enforcement will be very, very, very deep. And then some of the companies will really, really comply with their regulations. Not that they are not complying, but because it's a department, people take it as slight, and then they don't really regard some of their rules. So, Daniel, if maybe through you get to your superiors, and then maybe you can hit on it becoming an authority, it will really help.
All right, Mr. Ofori, fortunately, sorry, you were not done. Fortunately, I can see one of my superiors online, so I believe he's heard it clearly. He's actually online, so it's been heard by someone at the top. It's been heard by someone at the top. I'm not mentioning him, but he's online.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think, someone at the top has said it. Yeah.
Thank you,
okay,
Daniel.
That's good.
Please, respectfully, let me give a shout out to the top management person that have joined. We are grateful to have you here. Thank you for your support. Mr. Ofori, please go ahead.
That's good. All right. So my second thing also goes to the Department of Factories Inspectorate. Yes, I think they are doing a very good job. I know Daniel very well. Mostly they come to my factory and then they don't care whether they know you or not. They are always trying to make sure, the good things are done. I'll give him a thumbs up for that. But I want to plead that no matter the company is, let's say, enforcing its rules or not, DFI should always be around. And then we plead, when you come around or when you go around, insist on the right things the company should do. At times when you come around, we try to plead. We try to hide around some of these things, and then we get our ways out. I'm not setting any company on the toe or something like that, but I'm trying to say that we really need enforcement from your side. And I think we'll be good to go from there. With the ESG, with Deborah, I think it was also a very good presentation. I really liked it. And then if maybe you can share the slides, I joined late. If you can share the slides with me or maybe the whole team, we really appreciate that. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ofori. And yes, we will share the slides with everybody after this session. Do we have any other questions? Any